You know, Amazon's digital marketplace, it's just this massive, sprawling universe with millions and millions of things for sale. Most of it is pretty normal, but every once in a while you stumble on something that, well, it just doesn't make any sense. Today, we're going to explore one of those digital phantoms.
It all kicks off with the title, and you gotta hear this thing. The Reader in the Dark Beginnings Breath Part 2. Breath. The Reader in the Dark Beginning Breath P2. I mean, wow, it's a total mouthful, the formatting is all over the place, and it just makes you stop and ask, what on earth is this?
And then you see this. It's 8 pages long. Yep, that's it. All that title for a story that's barely longer than its own description.
And that is the real question here, isn't it? What kind of world, what kind of narrative can you possibly build in such a tiny, tiny digital space? Let's try to figure it out.
Okay, but before we can even get into the story itself, we have to look at how this thing is presented on the store, because honestly, the packaging or, the lack of it is just as weird as the title. So the very first thing you'll probably notice is there's no cover, just this blank default placeholder. It's like an ebook without a face, which really adds to this whole Ghost in the Machine vibe. It feels like it barely even exists.
And then there's just complete silence. 0 customer reviews. Not one. No 5-star, no 1-star, nothing. In the super noisy world of online shopping, that total lack of a footprint is almost louder than a bunch of bad reviews would be.
And get this, it's not even free. It costs £3.09. So someone is asking you to actually pay for an 8-page, coverless, totally unreviewed digital mystery. The question is still, what are you even buying? All right, so the only real clue we have to go on is buried in the product description. This is where we finally get a peek at what's supposedly inside those 8 little pages. And that summary, it paints a very specific and very dark picture. It's got a real classic gothic horror setup.
So we start right here, in this incredibly bleak and terrifying scene. You've got a predator, you've got a victim, and you've got the shadows. The stakes are immediately crystal clear, and they are very, very high.
But right when you think you know where this is going, boom, the story just pivots. This laugh completely shatters the moment. It's the arrival of something totally unexpected, something that does not belong in this scene of brutal violence.
And here they are, the two forces about to collide. On one side, you have the brutal killer, purely physical, earthly evil, and on the other, this spectral girl, who is somehow described as both childlike and ancient. A total supernatural paradox.
So you see, this isn't really a story about a rescue. It's about a confrontation. But it's not a fist fight. It's a psychological, almost supernatural assault on the killer himself.
His torment begins with just a sound, this disembodied French whisper. It's the first real sign that the normal rules of reality just don't apply anymore on this street. The killer is absolutely no longer in control here.
And then it gets deeply, deeply personal. The girl literally becomes a living mirror of his sins, forcing him to face what he's done. Every single transformation is like another nail being hammered into his psychological coffin.
So, what started as just a creepy encounter has now escalated into a full-blown supernatural trial and a sentencing. This killer isn't just being scared, he is being judged.
The punishment comes in 3 very distinct stages. First, he hears this awful cacophony of voices. Then, he's forced to actually feel the terror and the pain of his victims. It's like a forced, brutal empathy. And finally, he just collapses. Not from a wound, but because he's being suffocated by the weight of his sins. And just like that, it's over. Justice has been served, but not by any human law. The specters just fade away. Their work is done. All that's left is an empty street. So, that's the story. A really compact, brutal little piece of horror. But what does it mean that a thing like this even exists? In this specific way, as this weird little digital artifact. So let's look at those details one more time. 8 pages, 0 reviews. And check out that publication date, October 26, 2024. This thing is a pre-order for a ghost story that is, itself, already a kind of ghost in the machine. This all leads to a pretty fascinating idea, I think. We could call this a digital ghost story. Not just because of what it's about, but because of what it is. In an age of just endless content, it's a sure thing that some pieces are just going to get lost, and this is one of them.
It's a tiny, undiscovered bit of data floating in the huge, dark ocean of the internet, just waiting for a reader.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. This one little ebook, The Reader in the Dark, is kind of the perfect metaphor for itself. It really makes you wonder, in all the endless digital shelves of our world, how many other stories, how many other strange little creations are just sitting out there, waiting in the dark for someone, anyone, to find them.